Hello guys and welcome back to Web Acrylic YouTube channel. This video is going to be a full crash course on JavaScript, so make sure you watch the video till the end. Now let's start by understanding what JavaScript is. So basically JavaScript is a lightweight scripting / programming language that is used to make web pages more interactive. It can insert dynamic text, it can react to events, it can give information about users computer or network, it can perform various calculations, it can actually control your front end very well. So basically JavaScript is used to make your web page interactive and effective, and there are two standard ways of including JavaScript in an HTML page. The very first is you simply use script tag, and inside the script tag you write your JavaScript code and put the script tag either in the head tag or at the end of the body tag. The second way is you write the JavaScript code in a separate file and then you save that file by .js extension, and then you simply give the path of that file using src attribute in script tag. So these are the two standard ways of including JavaScript in your web page. Now let's begin to the practical part. Okay, so let's start from very basics. Here I have a HTML page with a p tag which is completely empty, and I have given it an ID of para. Now let's start writing JavaScript in HTML page. To write JavaScript we'll use script tag, and it is highly recommended to always use script tag at the very end of the body tag. So write script tag here and we'll write our JavaScript code inside this script tag. Now we'll first see how to create an output or how to print something on the browser. So there are four standard ways of printing something on the browser. The first is document.write. Now here let's write hello world. Let's save it and run it. Here you can see by using document.write we can create output on the browser screen, hello world. Now there is another way of creating output, which is using the HTML element, and I will use this particular p tag to create some output. So let's select it first, document.get element by not tag name, by ID, and the ID is para, and we'll set the inner HTML property to something like what's up. Now refresh it. Here you can see WhatsApp is written inside this p tag. Now there is another way of creating some output, which is by using alert tag. Now there is another way of creating some output, and that is by using alert function. Inside alert you can write something like good morning. Let's run it. Here you can see when you run it, it is flashing me the message good morning as a pop-up, and when I'll click on OK, it will load the web page. Now the last way of creating an output is by using console.log to print something on browser console. Let's write I am on. Now to see the output of the console, you have to print F12 to open the browser console, and inside the browser console you can see the output I am on console. So these are the four standard ways of printing something on the browser screen. The next basic thing is variables. Now in JavaScript variables are dynamically scoped, so we don't have to write anything like int, string or float with the variables. We simply write var, then the variable name, and we assign some value to it like 12. We don't have to take tension that whether the value is number like integer or float or it is string. We simply assign it to the variable. Okay, so that's how we assign a value to a variable. Now let's try to take input from user in JavaScript. Now to take user input from JavaScript, we'll use a variable to store the value. So let's say we are trying to input the name, and to do so we'll use prompt box. Enter your name, and we'll assign the name to this variable name, and then we'll print the name on the browser screen. Document dot write name. Now let's run it. You can see it is asking enter your name. So let's give it a name and we'll click on OK. It will print the value of the name variable on the browser screen. So that's how you take input and you assign values to variables. Now let's see some operators. We'll start with arithmetic operator. So arithmetic operators. So let's create two variables first. Let's give it the value 9 where b is equals to 11, and let's perform addition. Document dot write. Let's print a plus b, and again I'm here using a new thing which is br tag. So br tag in HTML is used to change the line. So I want after the addition the line should change, so I'm using this syntax. Now let's run it. Okay, we haven't saved that. Let's save it and run it. Here you can see 9 plus 11 is equals to 20. Now let's perform some more arithmetic operations. Let's perform subtraction, then multiplication, then we have division, we have mod, we also have exponent like a to the power 2, so 9 to the power 2. Now let's run all these. Here you can see a minus b is equals to minus 2. Now again a into b is 99, which is 9 multiplied by 11. Then a by b is equals to 0.081. Then a mod b is 9, and then a to the power 2, which is 9 square, it is equal to 81. So these are some basic arithmetic operations. Now let's see some logical operations and comparison operations as well. So comparison operations, but let's clear this first. So to compare two variables, we have some operators like equal to, not equal to, greater than equal to, and less than equal to. Let's see all of them. So we can check whether two variables are equal or not by using double equal to symbol. Now it simply checks whether a is equals to b or not. So let's check. So it is showing me false because a is not equal to b. But when I'll change the value of b to 9 and when I'll refresh it, it will return true because 9 is always equal to 9. We also have some more comparison operators like let's check a is greater than b, a is less than b, a is greater than equal to b, a is less than equal to b, and also we can check whether a is not equal to b. Now let's run these things. Okay, so it is returning me true because yes, a is equals to b. Now a is greater than b or not. So 9 is not greater than itself, so it is returning me false here. Now a is less than b. No, a is not less than b. Now a is greater than equal to b, so yes, this condition is true because here we are using greater than and equal to symbol. And at the very end we are using a is not equal to b, but it is returning us false because a is equals to b. Okay, one more comparison operator is very important in JavaScript, and which is the triple equal to symbol. So triple equal to symbol is returning us true. Now what is the difference between the triple equal to symbol and the two equal to symbol? So in two equal tos, we simply check whether the value of a is equal to b or not. And by using three equal to symbols, we check whether the value of a is equal to b or not. And we also check whether the data type of a is equals to b or not. So the triple equal to also checks for the equality of the data types. So that is all about the comparison operators. Now let's see some logical operators as well. Okay, so let's perform. There are actually three basic logical operations: and, or, and not, and these are performed on booleans. So let's perform a logical operation on two booleans, two trues, true and. Now to do AND operation we use double AND symbol. Now let's run it. So true and true is always true, as we all know. Now but if I'll convert it to false, then it will return me false, because true and false is always false. We can also do OR operation. Now OR operation returns true if any of the following is true. Unlike the AND operator, here it is returning me true because one of the option is true. We also have NOT operator, which simply flips the result. If I'll use not false, it will return me true. Here you can see. So these are the three basic logical operators in JavaScript. So that's all about the operators. The next concept is functions. Functions in any programming language are used for code reusability. For example, if there is a piece of code that you have to rewrite every time, so instead of rewriting the particular code all the time, you simply write it once, then convert it to the function and simply call the function whenever you need it. Pretty simple, right? Now let's see the syntax of writing a function in JavaScript. So we use function keyword, then the name of the function. I'm going to create a simple function for the addition of two variables. So let's name it add and then pass the parameter a and b, and in the block simply return the value of a plus b. So that's how you define a function, and to call it we'll use a syntax like this. Simply name and parenthesis, and we'll pass some values. Let's pass 5 and 6 and see the results. Here you can see the output is 11. So that's how you define a function, and that's how you call a function. Now in JavaScript you can also assign a function to a variable like this. Sub is equals to. Now whenever you use these kind of symbol to assign a function or to write a function, the concept is known as arrow function in JavaScript. Now these are used for saving some time. Okay, now inside it you can also pass some variables, some parameters, and let's return a minus b, which is for subtraction. So we are assigning our function to a variable, and in case of arrow function you don't have to write the function keyword. You simply start by parenthesis and then arrow and then the block and then the code of the body of the function, and simply assign it to a variable. And to call this, simply use this syntax, not this. Here sub 7 and 2. Now let's run it. Okay, here you can see the output is 11, but to see it clearly, give it a line break here. Okay, here you can see 7 minus 2 is 5. So these are the two ways to define a function in JavaScript. Okay, now let's talk about some data types in JavaScript, and we'll start from string data type. Okay. Now to define a string in JavaScript, we simply write like var and then a variable name, let's say name, or maybe f name, which will be used for first name, and let's give it a name Rajiv. Now in any programming language, string is something which is written inside double quotes. Let's create another string, last name, lname is equals to SINGH. So that is how you initialize a string variable in JavaScript. Now let's perform some predefined functions in JavaScript for the strings. So the very first thing that we can do with string is calculating the length of the string. Now to calculate the length, you simply write the variable name and then click press the dot and then write length. Let's run it. Here you can see fname.length. Now the length of fname, which is Rajiv, is 6. There are some more functions that you can use. Fname dot to uppercase to convert it to the uppercase like this. You can also use the lowercase to convert it to the lowercase like this. You can also access the string with the subscripts like this, like you access some arrays. For example, the index value 3, let's take and let's see what is at the index value 3. So the fname 3 is giving me E because the index always starts from 0. So 0 is assigned to R, 1 is assigned to A, 2 is assigned to J, and 3 is assigned to this first E. Now you can also write some functions like they are predefined function. A very important predefined function in JavaScript is index of. Now the index of function is used to determine the index of a particular character. For example, let's determine the index of V in Rajiv. So the index of V in Rajiv is 5, and you can see this 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 because the count starts from 0 in JavaScript. Now you can also do string slicing by using the slice function. Now slice function, you can create some substrings. So let's you have to mention two parameters, first the starting index and the last the ending index. So I need a substring from 1 to 4 index, and here you can see AJA. I got the substring. Another important predefined function is caret. You can use caret as well. Now caret function is used to determine a character at a particular index. Let's find out what is the character at index 2. So J is at index 2 in Rajiv. Here you can see R, A, J, which is 0, 1 and 2. Now the last operation that I am going to perform on strings are concatenation operation. Now to concat two strings, we can simply use plus operator. So let's concat fname with some space first, and then again concat it with lname, and let's see the output. Here you can see the string concatenation Rajiv Singh. So that's pretty it for strings in JavaScript. Now the next data type is numbers. So in JavaScript actually there is no concept of ints and floats. Everything is summed up in number data type. Now a number can be initialized as num1 10 and num2 12.11. Sorry, you don't have to mention this. So here you can see the first value is an int and the second value is float, and we both are assigning these two values using the var, only var. We are not writing any kind of int or any kind of floats here because JavaScript treats all the numerical values as number. Okay, but one important function which is also known as typecasting to convert something from string to a number. I want to show you here. Let's say there is a string 12. Now you want to convert this string to a number. You can convert this by using this kind of syntax, number str. So the number is typecasting this particular variable which is str, and str is containing the value 12 and it is converting it to num3. All right. So that's pretty it for the numbers, because we have already seen the numbers while doing the arithmetic operations. So I'll not take a lot of time here. Now let's jump onto the arrays. Now arrays are the most important concept in any programming language. So what is array? Array is basically a collection of different variables, a collection of different values. For example, you want to create a report card for various students of a class, right? So if suppose that there are 100 students in your class, so you don't want to create 100 variables, you can simply create one array with capacity of 100 storage values. So to initialize an array in JavaScript, you will write AR and then in square bracket you will create your array. So I am going to create a string array here of fruits. Mango, then banana, then apple. So here there are 3 values in my array. Now let's print it first. So that's how you print entire array. Here you can see mango, banana and apple. Now to access a particular element from array, you have to write something like this. So you can access a particular element by using its index. Let's say you want to access banana and the index of banana is 1. So you will write AR subscript 1. It will display banana because the index of mango is 0, index of banana is 1 and index of apple is 2. Now here again we have some predefined functions for arrays as well in JavaScript. Let's see all of them one by one. To calculate the length of an array, we'll use ar.length. Here you can see the length of the array is 3. You can also convert array to a string by using ar.join and join everything using something like this. Here you can see, or maybe just give it a space. Here you can see there are commas, but in this particular thing there are no commas. So this is a string, not an array. So you just converted an array to a string. Now you can also use arrays as stacks and you can perform push and pop operations. Now let's try push operation here. So ar.push, push will insert something at very end, guava. Now let's insert guava at the end. Here you can see guava is pushed. Now you can also use pop operation, just like stack. It will delete variables and values from the very end. Now let's refresh it. Here you can see guava is removed. Now to remove something from a particular index, we have to write delete then AR and then the index, let's say 0. Now again let's run it. You can see now we are left with only 2 values, mango and banana, because the second index is also deleted. And to update something, you can simply write AR2 is equals to grapes. Now let's run it. Here you can see the second thing is grapes. Okay, so that's pretty it for arrays. So I have used a string array here. You can also use number arrays just like this, where num, just like this you can create number array. You can also use some heterogeneous data like this. Comma, like this. This is also valid. So that's pretty it for JavaScript arrays. Next concept is objects. Now objects are collection of heterogeneous data types. They are collection of different kind of variables, just like dictionary in Python. So let's see how you can create an object in JavaScript. So let's delete everything. objects objects. Now to create an object, you have to write var, then the variable name, let's say obj, and let's assign a body to it, and I'm going to create my first variable f name, and let's give it a value of Rajiv. Let's create another variable l name, let's give it a value of Singh. Alright, now so that's how you create an object in JavaScript. Now to access values of any object, you will simply use dot operator. Now if I want to access the f name, then I'll write obj dot f name. Now let's run it. Oh, I forgot a comma here. Now let's run it. Here you can see obj.fname is returning Rajiv. There is another way of accessing the object variables, which is by using the subscript, just like named arrays. L name. Let's try to access L name of obj. Sorry. Here you can see Singh. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that objects are heterogeneous in nature, so we can use different kind of data types here. We can assign ID of some numbers like this 1 2 3 4 5, which is also valid. We can also write some function here like full name, and let's return a function. Okay, so here, and return this dot f name plus this dot l name. Okay, so let me describe what is happening here. So I have created two more variables. The third variable is id, and I have assigned an id to it 1 2 3 4 5, which is number, which is a different data type obviously, and function is again something very different from a integer or a number. So we can assign numbers, we can assign strings, we can assign arrays to a object. So all different kind of data type we can embed in one variable, and that variable is our object. Now to access the function, we have to write something like obj dot full name. Now let's run it. Here you can see this function is returning me the full name. Now I have used this keyword here. So what is the function of this keyword? So this keyword always refers to the current object, and the current object is obj. So this dot f name means the f name of this particular object, and the f name of this particular object is Rajiv. So here it is returning me Rajiv. So again here it is returning me Singh, and I have used a space to concat these two things, and at the very end it is returning me the full name Rajiv Singh. And let's again, the last thing, let's access the id also, dot id. So you can see it is not giving us any kind of error. We can use different kind of data types just like the dictionary in Python. So that's pretty it for objects. The next concept in JavaScript is of conditionals, but before moving forward, let's clear the canvas, and now we'll see conditionals by using if and else statement. Now to use conditional operators, to use conditional statements, we have to use this if statement. Now inside if, we can use any kind of condition. Now let's create a simple program. We'll input a variable from user and we'll check whether it is even or odd. Okay, so let's write num prompt enter a number and then we'll check by using if statement. If num mod 2, now if the remainder is 0, because mod function always returns the remainder, so if the remainder is 0, then we'll write even, else we'll write odd. Now let's run it. Now let's input 4, and here you can see 4 is even. Again refresh it. Now this time we'll enter 7. Oh sorry, I forgot to change odd. My bad. Now let's enter 7, and you can see it is returning as odd. So that's how you use conditional if and else. You can also create if else ladder by using multiple conditions. So for that you can use this. Now else if the number mod 3 equals 0, we can write something like the number is divisible by 3, and at the else part we can write something like odd only, which is divisible by 3 and is odd. Now let's refresh it and let's enter 3 this time. So you can see when you will write 3 in the particular input box, so it will check the first condition, which it will return false, and then when the condition will be false, now it will simply execute the second condition. It will check whether the number is divisible by 3 or not, and if the number is divisible by 3, it will execute this statement: the number is divisible by 3 and is odd, and else it will return this. So that's how you use if else ladder. Now the next concept is switch. Okay, now suppose instead of inputting some number, we are inputting some weekdays. Let's say input a weekday. So if and else can be replaced by switches in particular conditions if we have some cases predefined. So to write switch statement, we'll use switch keyword, and then we'll perform the switch on num. Alright, then create the body. Now the case first will be like when the value of num is 1, then this part will be executed. We'll write day is Monday, and then it is mandatory to write a break keyword to stop the further execution. If you will not write the break keyword in between the cases, then it will execute all the cases afterwards. Now for 2, we can write day is Tuesday. Now you can assign the case 3, case 4, case 5, and at the very end you will write a default statement which will run when none of the case will detected true. So at the default case we can write something like day is unknown. So this is the syntax of a switch statement. Now let's test this. Now let's input 1. Oh, why at 1 it is okay, sorry, I'm not using this here, and I have not typecasted it either, so I have to write the string. Now let's input 1. Here you can see it is returning day is Monday because the condition 1 is met, so it is executing the first part. Now if we write something else from 1 and 2 it will return day is unknown, which is default statement. So that's how you use switch statement and if else statement in JavaScript. Okay guys, so next concept is loops in JavaScript. So we use loops whenever we want to perform a particular task multiple times or n number of times. For example, if you want to write something n number of times, then we can use loops. The basic loop in JavaScript is for loop and we'll start with that only. So the syntax of for loop is like this, write for and then where, then a variable, let's assign a value to it, let's assign 1 to it, and then a condition, if I is less than equal to 5, I plus plus. Now here let's write document dot write hello. So this particular code will write hello 5 times. So let me show you the result first. Here you can see hello printed 5 times. Now how it is working? Firstly, it is creating a variable I and assigning a value 1 to it. Then it is checking whether the value of I is less than 5 or not. So you can see yes, 1 is less than 5. Now if 1 is less than 5, simply execute this statement. Now print hello and then increment the value of I by 1. So the value is incremented and now the value is 2. Again it is going to check whether 2 is less than 5 or not, and if it is less than 5 then it will execute this statement and again then increment. Now the value is now 3. Now again it will check whether 3 is less than 5 or not, and you can actually see the values incrementing or decrementing just by printing this variable. You can see 1 2 3 4 5. So this is the syntax of for loop. So for performing some action and number of time. There is another loop which is known as while loop. Now let's try that. So to create while loop we have to write where I equals to, let's say, 1. So we have to initialize the variable outside the loop this time. Then we'll write while and we'll put the condition here while less than. Now let's run this time 7 times. Now we'll run the loop 7 times. So is less than equal to 7. Now here document dot write what's up and then br tag. Alright, and then we'll increment the value of I. So now let's see what is happening here. First let's save it and run it. Here you can see WhatsApp is printed 7 times. Now how it is working? Simply we are assigning a variable with a value I and then we are creating the loop, while loop. Now it is checking whether I is less than 7 or not, and if it is less than 7 then simply print it, the WhatsApp, and then increment the value to the next value, like from 1 it will be incremented to 2, and again it will check whether 2 is less than 7 or not. If it is less than 7 then again print, then again increment it to 3. Now it will check whether 3 is less than equal to 7 or not, and so on. So that's how you write a while loop. Now again there is another loop which is known as do while loop. So here it checks the condition after executing loop once. For example, we'll write something like document dot write execute once and then while. Now here we'll write the condition, and in the condition we can write something like I is less than equal to 5, and let's put I plus plus here. So it will simply print the execute once or maybe any kind of message that you will write here, and then it will increment, and then at end it will check the value. So Okay, one thing you can clearly see here, that it is executing the loop body once and then checking the condition. So no matter the condition is true or false, the body will be executed at least once. And this is the basic difference between while loop and do while loop. In while loop, the condition is checked before executing the body of the loop, and in do while loop, uh, and the condition is checked after executing the loop at least once. So let's run it. I think we have done some kind of mistake here. What it is, let's check it. Something we have done wrong, I guess. But what it is, oh sorry, here it is. Yeah, no errors guys, no errors. Just we have to mention a BR here, just like this. Now refresh it, and here you can see execute once. Now let's change the value to 6. Now the condition will be false, so it will still run the body of the do while loop at least once. Here you can see the value of I is 6 and the condition will get false here, but still it will execute the body at least once. Okay, so this is the basic difference between while loop and do while loop. Now there are two most special loops that are also known as iterators. Okay, so for example, let's say that here we have an array and you want to iterate the array using loop. So you can do so by for then x of the name of the array, which is cars, and then simply document dot write x. Here you can see, I always forget this, the BR thing. Here you can see. So that's how you can iterate an array. Okay, you can use one more syntax here, the normal for loop, just like this. For let's say where j is equals to 0, then j less than cars dot length j plus plus, and again document dot write c cars j. So both the things are same. This is a kind of shorter version of the for loop while iterating an array. Here you can see both are doing the same job. Now just like iterating arrays, we can also iterate objects. Now let's try iterating objects. So here we are using x of. Now to iterate objects, we'll use x in person, and here we'll write something like person of x. Now let's run it. You can see x is iterating throughout the person object, John, Doe, and 25. So this was the last loop. So we saw 5 kind of basic loops in JavaScript. So I guess that's pretty it for loops. After loops, we are going to see dates object. Okay, so in JavaScript we can also play with dates, and I'll show you how. Sorry. Okay, all right, now let's start with date. Now to create a date object, you have to write where d, let's name it d, and new date. Now let's print it. Okay, oh, what I'm doing. Document dot write d. Now let's run it. Here you can see it is showing us complete date. Now there are some predefined functions for date as well. Let's see all of them one by one. Alright, but first br. Yeah, let's see all of them one by one. Now to fetch the full year from date, we can use d dot get full year function, and to fetch month we can use get month. We can also fetch date by d dot get date. Now let's run this. Here you can see the d dot get full year is returning me 2020, the d dot get month is returning me 8, and the d dot get date is returning me 16. Alright, now we have some more functions. We can use d dot get hours. Let's run it. Here you can see 13 hour, it is giving me the time. Alright, then we can use minutes dot get. So these kind of functions are very helpful while designing some kind of online games, and I'll show you some mini projects using these, the dates and some random functions, some random objects. You can also use get d dot get day. Now the minutes are returning me the minutes, which is 1322, which is 122, and then 3 is the day, which is, I guess, it is returning 3 for Wednesday. Alright, so these are some predefined function for dates. That's pretty it. Date object, we also have math object, which is one of the most important modules in JavaScript. Now let's see math object. Alright, it is important to perform some calculations, let me show you. Math dot round, you can round off some values, like for example 4.7. let's round it off. Here you can see 4.7 is round off to 5. We can also use math dot pi for the value of pi, which is 3.1415926 something something something. We can use math for power, yes, for calculating power. For example, let's say 8 to the power 2, which is actually 8 square. You can also use double asterisk for that, it is returning 64 here. We can also use ABS for absolute value. Now absolute, let's say minus 4.7. now let's run it, and here you can see it is converting minus 4.7 to 4.7, which is absolute value. We can also use ceiling and floor values, like math dot ceil. Now let's check the ceil value, which is 5. We can also use the floor value here. Now let's check this. Now the floor value of 4.7 is 4. We can also use the math object for determining maximum and minimum of some list of numbers, just like this: 4, 3, 6, 7. Now let's try finding out the maximum. Here you can see it is returning me 7 for this. For this particular code, it is returning me 7 because it is max. You can also use this for finding the min. Now to find the minimum value, just write min. Here you can see it is returning me 2 now. Now again, most important thing for game creation or something which is most frequently used in some kind of lottery website is random number. Now for generating a random number in JavaScript using maths object, it is bit trickier, but let me show you how you can do this. Simply write math, let's write math.random first and see what is the output. Clear everything else first. Now let's run it. Here you can see every time I'll refresh it, it will give me a random number between 0 and 1. Alright, but to get some kind of concrete number, because here it is giving me a floating value, I don't want the float value, so I'll multiply it by 10 first. Now you can see I'm getting one number before the decimal as well, between 0 and 9. Now to get more concrete number, the thing I can do is simply wrap everything inside a math.flow function. Now when I'll do this, it will return every time a random number between 0 and 9. Now to get a random number between 0 and 10, you can simply replace 10 by 11. Now here you can see it is giving me some kind of random numbers between 0 and 10. So that's how you generate random numbers in JavaScript. Okay, there is one more very important concept in JavaScript, and which is of let and const. So what are let and const type of variables? So for example, if I write something like where x is equals to 12, alright, and if I put it inside a block, still it means that the x is having global scope. I can prove it to you. If I write something like this here, and if I run it, here you can see I can actually access x outside this particular block. I have initialized the variable x in some specific block, but I can easily access it outside the block, which simply refers that it is having global scope here. But if I write let instead of where, then I cannot actually get any kind of output, because I cannot access it outside the block. So here is the basic difference between the let and the where. Where is having global scope and let is having block scope. And the third thing is const, which is very similar to let. There is just a simple difference that we can't reassign const variable. Const actually stands for constant. So if we define something as a constant, we can't change the value further in program. But if we use something with let, we can reassign the value. So this is the basic difference between where, let and const. There is one more very important concept in JavaScript which is actually asked many times in interviews, is of hoisting and use strict. So what is hoisting? So JavaScript has a property that we can use some variables before actually declaring them. For example, we can write something like this, x is equals to 10, and if I'll run it, it will not show me any kind of error, and this property is known as hoisting. I'm not using the keyword where here, I'm not initializing it as a variable, I'm simply using x is equals to 10. Okay, but if I use the strict mode and use strict here, and if I run it and then open the console, I can see an error here that x is not defined. And if I remove it and then refresh it, sorry, let's refresh it. Here you can see when I refresh it, the error is gone. So the use strict phrase actually prevents the hoisting property, and it is a good thing to mention this in your code so that your code will be more systematic and more accurate. Okay, now at the very end, I am going to show you how you can create decision box using JavaScript, where a user can choose between two actions. So for that, let's create a variable where x, and the box is known as confirm box. So let's confirm something. You can write anything like are you sure. You can pop up this if the user is submitting something or the user is deleting something. So you can pop up this kind of message when user is deleting something maybe. And again document dot write x. Now let's run it. So here you can see whenever I'm running it, it is simply displaying me this, are you sure? And if I click on OK, it will return me true. The value of x will be true. And I can use some kind of conditional operators like if and else to perform different kind of operations. And if I click on cancel, it is going to return me false. Again, I can use some if and else conditional statements to perform some kind of action. So that's how you can create confirm box. Alright, so that's pretty it for JavaScript, guys. That's it for this video. In the next video, we'll see JavaScript events and JavaScript DOM. Again, that are most important part of JavaScript. So make sure that you watch the next video as well. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure that you hit subscribe button and press the bell icon. And please hit like on this video. And thanks for watching.